We begin with the Hilchot Pesach since we're getting close to the Yontav of Pesach. The code Tafkuf Memvav 546 Dinei Erusin Venisuin Bechol HaMoed, the law in regarding to engagement and marriage during the Chol HaMoed, the intermediary days between the first Yontav and the second one. I'm reading for the Mishna Bura, the translation. En nos'im nashim b'moed lo betulot velo almanot velo meyabnim. One may not take a wife not married on Chol HaMoed, neither virgin like first marriage, or no widows, or one may not perform yibum, a levirate marriage. On the other hand, umutar le'ares, you're allowed to engage of a woman in any type, in any category on Chol HaMoed, ubilvad, with one condition, shelo yaseh seudat erutzim, provided that an espousal feast is not held by the espouser in the home of her espouser at the time of the erusin, engagement. Umutar la'asot rikudin umecholot. However, it's permitted to have hoping and dancing then, and it's also permitted for the engagement to hold a feast with his friend, provided that it is not held in the home of her house. And likewise, it is permitted for the engagement to feast in the home of his spouse, except that he must not do so at the time of espousal. So the key point is it's a Chol HaMoed. The Mishnah Bura said the reason is that one may not mingle one rejoicing with another rejoicing. Even the nisuim, the marriage alone without holding a feast, is also forbidden. The Achronim writes that the rule that one may not mingle one rejoicing with another rejoicing only applies when both rejoicing are for one person. However, it is permitted for two people to mingle their rejoicing, and therefore one is permitted to make a chuppah for an orphan, groom or bride, or for a poor person, and accompany it with a rejoicing for the marriage of one of his own children on the same day. On the other hand, it is the practice to be careful not to make the marriage of two brothers, two sisters, or brother and sister at the same day. Even Kiddushin is like the early stage of the marriage. It's like the Jewish marriage has two distinct stages, and there is a Kiddushin, also called Erusin, taking a wife, and then Nisuim, the Chuppah. So even a Kiddushin may be performed as the mere performance of ordinary espousal unaccompanied by a feast. Is not regarded as rejoicing with respect to this ruling. It is certainly permitted on Chol HaMoed to bind oneself by the tnaim of marriage, which means just a very basic contract, basic agreement, in conformance with the practice among us. As to the feast that is usually held after the writing of tnaim, the Taz forbids it, as its ruling for the holding of the spousal feast. However, the other Achronim are lenient about it, as this binding is not considered as much as a rejoicing as espousal. At any rate, if one does not hold a full feast, but merely serves sweetmeat or like something like that, one need definitely not be stringent. So that's make it much easier for us. Also, you talk about dancing. This may even be done in the home of the spouse, as it's not describable as rejoicing with respect to this matter. And the second halacha is mutar lachzir grushato min hanesuim. one is permitted to take back his wife he divorced after he took her to wife, which means it's not speaking about Kohen, speaking about regular Israel that divorce his wife and then he bring her back. So all such feasting is not classes as an espousal feast, and this is because this is not so much of a rejoicing for him. As regards to the holding of a feast for the marriage, is simply by the way that we say that one should be stringent. There are Achronim who adopt the lenient view. One may definitely rely on a lenient view to hold a feast for the marriage, not on the day of the marriage. So again, he said, but he took her as a wife. However, he said here that a divorced woman, merely after espousal, he is forbidden to take her back into his house, hold as a wife on a Chol HaMoed. Even just to espouse her and hold a feast is also forbidden. As he never took her to wife, she will now be a new wife for him, and the marriage will be a rejoicing. So there are just several halachot in Hilchot Pesach, and now we're going to our subject, which is beginning of the last perek, the last chapter, Shechianu, Baruch Hashem, reach a point to get to the chapter 24, the last chapter of this beautiful long Tractate Shabbat, page 153, and the perek called Mi Shehechshich, and what we have, it's the idea of what involved with can be done or not done with the animals on Shabbat. We have all the idea of transporting items that are on animal from one domain to another on Shabbat. It's a detail of the prohibition of driving a laden animal on Shabbat, and also we have some preparation of food for animals on Shabbat. All of that wrap up with this chapter, and now we're going to the first Mishnah at the middle of the page 153. Before we start the Mishnah, let me share with you a very important concept in Halacha. We have a biblical mitzvot and we have a rabbinic mitzvot. We have a biblical prohibitions, we have rabbinic prohibitions. The issue is, sometimes when we said no, this is prohibited, people may go ahead and violate biblical law. So sometimes you need to choose between, in our best language, two evils. If you allow a person to violate rabbinic law in order to avoid him or her from violating a biblical precept. Here is the subject. Mi she'achshich lo baderech noten kiso lanochri. In those days, let's say someone riding a donkey and it's getting close, it's getting dark, and it's Shabbat. And nowadays, one who's traveling on Shabbat Eve and night is about fair, gets stuck in the big autobahn in Europe, in a big highway. All of a sudden, you're planning to come there 2 hours before Shabbat, and boom, it's something happened on a highway, can be a storm, can be, God forbid, an accident, and you're stuck. So they said, and he's still in a route, so he needs to give his money pouch to a non-Jew that was traveling with him. So he needs to take off his wallet or pocket and give it to a non-Jew in advance. So basically, the best is to give him before Shabbat in order to avoid carrying a muktzeh, something that's set aside. That's what Rashi said. And then after Shabbat is over, Motzei Shabbat, he's taking back. Ve'im eni mo nochri, menicho ala chamo. If there is none of a non-Jews around him, so he take it out and put it on the donkey. So usually you don't ride a donkey in a public domain that carries something, but here they allow it. And later the GEMARA explained that when it's come to a person's property, a person's money, people do a lot of things even they knew that they are in violations. So therefore, we try to, that's the key point of the Rosh, Rabbeinu Asher, that said that in that sense, we enter the domain of violation of rabbinics, not biblical. הגיע לחצר החיצונה, when he's an out, where is the outer courtyard of the city, where the belongings can be securely placed, נוטל את הכלים הניטלים בשבת, he takes the vessels that may be moved on Shabbat, ושאינן ניטלים בשבת, and he may not move those who may not be moved, the others on Shabbat, because that's muktzeh, set aside, and then matir החבלים והשקים נופלים עליהם, he unites the rope that attach his bag to the donkey, and the bag vessels fall on their own. So the whole idea is Adam bahul al mamono, a person is very concerned about his wealth, about his money, and here the choices is either he's violating a Torah commandment, so if it's come to fire, the sages say the opposite, but here it's different, that people can do a lot of things to save their money, and they said, how come they do it? So the GEMARA asks, Mai tama sharu lei Rabbanan? How come the sages say that it's okay, permitted to give it to a non-Jew? They say, Lemeitav kisel anochri. So Rashi said here, first Rashi says, Vareu shlucho lisenu b'Shabbat. The non-Jew is going to carry it as his shaliach, as his emissary, to carry it on Shabbat, and that's forbidden. So, אמר רבא, דווקא כיסו, אבל מציאה לא. Rava said that, you know what, that's apply only to in case that specifically with regard to his own pouch. But in the case of law subject, so he said that he found no, it was not permitted. So the GEMARA asks, Pshita, it's obvious. Well, how do you know? Because we learn in the Mishnah, Kisotnan. We learn in the Mishnah clearly that that's applied to what? To his pouch, and nothing else. So they explain, Mao, the Talmud Adin afilu metziah v'aydik tane kiso, the ochamita ketane kamash melan. You may think that the same is true even with regard to lost object, that one may give it to the non-Jew on Shabbat, and the Mishnah taught the case that his pouch was merely because of in the manner in which the matter typically occurs. It says, now, another option, Ika de Amrei. So in other words, if Velo Amaran, and all of that apply only when it's not come to his possession before Shabbat. However, it's come to his possession before Shabbat, its legal status is like that of his pouch. Another option, it's not a din and it's not a safek, it's not it's only some type of quandary, some type of dilemma, but it's not a law. And that's the way by Rava asked, if it's a last object that came into his possession before Shabbat, what is the ruling? You may say that because this possession come to him, it's a legal status like it's his pouch, or since he did not exert himself to acquire it, its legal status is not like that of his pouch, and therefore there's the Sofek Darabanan, they take doubt the way that the rabbis thinks, and Sofek Darabanan lekula. We usually go by the rabbinic quandary more lenient. So the GEMARA concluded and said Teiko, that let this dilemma stand unresolved. So the truth is the Rashba and the Ritva and the Ran say that according to halacha we go lenient. because if you're telling to a non-Jew to do something, you violated the rabbinic rules. So therefore, if he found something that carry value, if it's before the Shabbat, he can give it to a non-Jew. And the Rambam Hilchot Shabbat, chapter 20, elaborate on that, and he said that that's the necessary evil, the best you can do in that circumstance. Any monochri, if it's not a non-Jew with him, so he has no choice even to put it on a donkey. Tama, deni monochri, ha yesh monochri l'nochri ha'ivle. It's all because he doesn't have a non-Jew. Or if he have a non-Jew, but he doesn't put it on a donkey. So some Rishonim added to the word here, in the quotation, they said, or she'eino ma'amino, that in other words, he doesn't trust the non-Jew. So therefore, he is not in trust, so he doesn't want to do it with him. My Tama, what's the reason that it's better to give it to a non-Jew from the idea of putting it at the top of the donkey? He said, the Gemara explained, if you own a donkey, so it's your obligation that the donkey rests as part of what we say. Lo ta'aseh melacha, you should not do any work, you, your servant, etc., and including animals. But the non-Jew, even they are made by you, you are not obligated. Which means shvitat behema, when it's come to the animals, is a biblical. Saying to the non-Jew, it's the rabbinic. Because again, the fear is that if you don't let him do that, he's going to violate it.
Right.
Something. So they said, chamor v'cheresh shoteh v'katan. If it's not just a donkey, if you have a situation of somebody who is deaf, or someone who is a minor, deaf mute, and imbecile, and a minor,
Imbecile, yeah.
right, imbecile, lo yahivle. So he's not giving them my tama. Hane adam, ha'elav adam. All the others calls human. But this is not considering a human. In a sense, it's not a person, right? So that's one idea. Next one, he said, חמור אתה מצווה על שביתתו, נוכרין המצווה שביתתו, חמור אחרי שלא קדם נטמע, חמור המנח לחרי שלא קדם לא יבלם, הייתמה, הנה אדם, אליו אדם, חירש ושוטה. The other, a deaf mute and imbecile, thank you. So they said it's different. לשוטה, שוטה וקטן לשוטה. In other words, if you have a choice between somebody who's shote or a minor, so you go by the shote. Because in the incubable had and the minor were with him, and he gave him the incubable. Imbecile. Thank you. Then he said, "Aliba de Rabbi Eliezer oti ba elach." So he asked first, "Balu cheresh v'katan ma'u." What do you do with a deaf mute and a minor? Well, with him, what's the ruling? So he said, according to Rabbi Eliezer, it's not an issue. The Tana Rabbi Yitzchak B'Shor Rabbi Eliezer, Trumat Cheresh, if you have a contribution that came from a deaf mute, that he's separated from his people. So the Gemara said, we just turned the page 153b. So we said, Rabbi Eliezer, Trumat Cheresh, lo tetzeh lechulin, mipnei shehu safek. When you have a contribution, Truma that came from a deaf mute, that it's separate from his produce, so it's in a way you not take it and sanctify. It doesn't have the same status as something that it's non-sacred, and in a sense it's still sacred. It's like safek truma. You're not sure how the level of the consecration involved here. Rashi said that people are not kohanim, they're still forbidden for them to eat from that. But again, since it's an issue if that considering a truma, a contribution or not. So someone, a regular person, needs to return and contribute, because otherwise is the issue that those fruits are in a category of tevel, that it's not clear, it's like a dilemma, it's uncertain. So death newt, according to Rabbi Eliezer, he is apparently has a degree of halachi intelligent, so you have more obligation than a little minor. Kiti ba'elecha. What do you have? A question, still question. Aliba de Rabbanan, according to the sages. Why? Because they hold that they have no brain, that he doesn't have anything. So Ditnan is a famous Mishnah in Tractate Shabbat, the first chapter. Chamisha lo yitromo. There are 5 categories that we do not accept contribution from. Ve'im tarmu, ve'im b'diavad, somehow by force of circumstance they brought a contribution. So they said, en turumatam truma. We don't accept that as a contribution. Ve'eluhen, here are the lists. Number 1, cheresh, someone who's deaf mute. Number 2, shoteh. Shoteh,
deranged person.
Deranged person, thank you. Vekatan, what is a katan?
Minor.
Minor. And vehatorem sheno shelo.
Someone who separates truma that's not his.
Yes, there are people like that
Okay.
in the world. The Mishna said in Avot that there are 4 types of people who give tzedakah. There are people who give tzedakah only have the name on the building, or the name, all the times you give them the honor, the recognition. So there are some people who's contributing something that is not even there. It sometimes happen, you go to a store and you see an employee and he said, take it, it's fine, you can take it. And he didn't get the permission from the owner, but he said, take it. And sometimes the owner disagree with that. Next one, ונוכרי שתרם את של ישראל אפילו ברשותו, אין תרומתו תרומה. If a non-Jew contributed something that belongs to a fellow Jew, even he gave him a permission, it's not considered, because the Torah said clearly how you it said, כן תרימו גם אתם תרומת השם. They said in book of במדבר, chapter 18, גם, it's only you, but the others is the issue if it's a non-Jew, according to the Torah. So for example, what the sages said that somebody who's a deaf mute, his contribution is not considering his contribution, it means because he doesn't have the understanding, doesn't have the intelligence to understand. So his category of obligation toward mitzvot, according to Rashi, is just the same as a regular minor. And then they said, so what happened if he have with him a deaf mute and a minor? So they said, lecharesh yahivle. He can give to the deaf mute his pocket. The katan ate lechlalat. The deaf mute remained deaf mute forever, most probably. But the minor, one day, he changed to a regular bar mitzvah, and then he a regular person who have full understanding by halacha. O dilma lekatan yahivle decheresh atelachlufe begadol pikeach. He should give it to the minor, because if a deaf mute, he can switch him with someone who's
competent.
Prudent?
Someone who's competent. Competent,
right? So what's the machloket? So there are those who some say that he give it to a deaf mute, and some say he give it to a minor. So you don't have a final word. It's not a definite conclusion. So the GEMARA asks, imagine a situation you have nobody, neither non-Jew nor someone who's a deaf mute, etc., not a minor, no, nothing. אמר רבי יצחק, עוד אחרת הייתה ולא רצו לכם לגלותה. It was another idea that the sages had, but they did not want to reveal it. And they elaborate on that. They said, my עוד אחרת הייתה. What is another decree the rabbis had? מוליכו פחות מ400, which means he carried less and less than the 4 hand cubits. So why they don't do it? You tell me. Think together. By the Torah, you can carry anything if it's a public domain up to 4 cubits. So if his stand each time on the 4 cubits,
not just before
right, before cubit, so it's considering like he put down the item, right?
No, I understand
and then
that.
When he go again, it's like again he uprooted and moved it, new one. So it means he doesn't carry 4 amot in one time. So even the rabbis usually not allow that to happen. Someone is in a rare circumstance that all of a sudden unexpectedly turned to be dark, and people are very careful with the money. So therefore, the Shalish wasn't in favor to reveal that idea to public. So now he asks, so how come Rav Yitzchak said it and Rav Ashi wrote it in the GEMARA? How come? So they explain they didn't want to say it in the Mishnah because that's everybody will take it and people can take it out of concept and can be lenient when it's not, should not be.
Right.
But in the Gemara, people who reach that point of depth and they are so involved, they are more scrupulous. So that's what I'm understanding. But
let me ask you this though: isn't there an issue then with moving muktzah? Isn't the item then muktzah?
In general, the rabbi is not in favor of that because
even if
you
you're moving
open
it
the
less
door.
than 4 amot, it's still you're moving a muktzah item which you shouldn't move at all, right?
Excellent. The point is, as you said, everyone here, that the minutes you open the door,
right, it's
like snowball. People start allowing a lot of things that is forbidden. So the rabbi is not in favor of doing that. What's the reason the sage did not want to reveal that rules? Rashi said, what, you're hiding the word of Torah? So the Gemara said, Mishum, the King Solomon said in the book of Proverbs chapter 25, Kvod Elokim haster davar, Uchvod melachim chakor davar. The honor of God is sometimes in the glory of God to conceal the thing, but the glory of kings is to reach out the matter. So here, Vehacha my kvod Elokim miika, what glory of God is there to conceal this opinion? The answer is, as we said, Dilma atelatu 400 birshut harabim. This fellow goes so meshuger over his money. Imagine it's a package of who knows how much money he carries.
Which is muktzah anyway.
So he is going to carry 4 cubits in the public domain. So you don't go there. So now we said earlier on page 17b that situation that he has with him a non-Jew, so he should not go more than 4 amot, 4 cubits. And we said that when it was a big machloket between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel in Aliyah and the attic of Hananiah ben Chizkiah, that was one of the decree they made at that time. So and now is the big question. Tanya Rabbi Eliezer Omer. It was that time that they get together all the house of Shammai and house of Hillel. And he said, Bo bayom, when the sages went up to the Aliyah, the place that Hananiah ben Chizkiah lives, and they put a decree that if you have with him a non-Jew, he should not carry below than 4 cubits, he says, Gadshu se'ah. In that data, they put a very big boundary around the Torah, and he said that they add more boundaries that Rashi said in order to make sure that people observe it properly. So it was like a very positive thing they did. Rabbi Yoshua Omer bo bayom machaku se'ah. Rabbi Yoshua said on that very day they measured with a minimum se'ah. It's a language of allegorical, which means because these decrees are difficult to observe, and they not only will lead people to violate the decrees, but to violate Torah prohibitions as well. So he said the opposite. They took it out. Tanya, Mashal de Rabbi Eliezer lema davar domeh. here is the story that the matter what is the similar. So he said, לקופה מלאה קישואים ודלויים, to a basket full of squash and grounds, and אדם נותן לתוכה חרדל והיא מחזקת. A person places a master's seeds, and the basket hold the masters, and the decree will also endure. משל דרבי יהושע למה דבר דומה לה, ערבה מלאה דבש, נותן לתוכה רימונים ואגוזים והיא מקיאה. So the other one is like you have a large bowl of honey, and you put and you put inside a pomegranate and a walnut. So just the bowl expels the honey from the inside. So the decree will cause the Torah prohibition to be violated. So it all depends how you take it. So they said, Amar mar'eh nochim o menicho ala chamor. If there's a non-Jew with him, she should put it on the top of the donkey. So they asked, כבר לא מחמר, ורחמן אמרה לא תעשה כל מלאכה. So one of the labors that forbidden, there's some that we're considering one of the 39 labors that prohibited from the tabernacle, it's the driving a laden animal. And the Torah said on the 7th day of Shabbat, you shall not perform any manner of labor. So they said clearly in Exodus 20 that it's forbidden to do it. So how come the sages allow to carry this basket on a donkey? So GEMARA responds and it said, Amar Ravada barava menicho alea kshehi me'alechet. One placed the pouch on a donkey as it's walking, because in doing so he does not commit a full-fledged violation of the Torah prohibition against carrying out from domain to domain on Shabbat. A full-fledged violation consists of lifting and placing the object, because the animal was already walking when the pouch was placed on it. The animal performed no lifting. And they ask, let's face it. We're dealing with animal, what happened? It's impossible that the animal will stand in its place at some point in order to urinate or release itself and begin the walking again. It's a both. It's a akira, it's a lifting, an act of placing performed by the donkey. So he said, when the animal walks, you put it on the top of the donkey. When it's standing, not lo, he removes it. So they said, if that's the case, even one can even place a pouch on another Jew as well. So it's not a akira, not an acha, not a lifting and no placing. Amar Rav Papa, kol shebegufo chayav, any action that the person does with himself, with his body, he is liable for sin offering. B'chavero patur. That if it's his fellow is exempt. However, aval asur. Remember we said several times it's exempt, but the rabbinics agreed it forbidden. So therefore, you cannot because we said that if two people does some type of melacha, so both of them are exempt from sin offering. But if a person does the entire work, which is both lifting and placing, like akira ve'anacha, we lifted it, he carried the 4 cubits and he put it down, so then he liable for sin offering. But here, if he take it out, lift it up, and put it together, that there are two people, and the rabbi is not allowed to do that even to save his pocket. So therefore, aval, according to the rabbinics degree, it's forbidden. Kol shechaveiro patur. But as long as his fellow is exempt, so they said, aval asur, but it's a rabbinic prohibition that you don't do it. B'chamoro mutar lechatchila. But when it's come to his donkey, it's permitted even lechatchila, even in the first place. So the whole prohibition of two people that does something together, it's applied to two people. But it's not applied to a person and an animal. So therefore you can place it on a donkey, and even you carry it in the public domain without akira, without lifting, it's a rabbinical prohibition, and usually you don't cause the animal to do even rabbinic type of labor, but in order to save his money, the sages allow it. You remember what we said earlier, that sometimes the sages figured out it's better for a person to violate rabbinic law than to violate biblical law. Right, so that's part of that school of thought. Now the Gemara brings another example when a person can carry his package on Shabbat. If the package was carried on his shoulder before Shabbat, and now all of a sudden they start the Shabbat, he should run under that part until he reach his home. So they say davka rats. The whole idea of we being lenient is applied specifically. One runs until he reaches home. Aval kalei lo. Kalei. Rashi here used the word klomar, and I explain in my book Bira klomar berashi al Shas. What does that mean here, the klomar? The key point Rashi tried to say when you use kale me'at klomar benachat, Rashi tried to say that but if you're walking a little bit at a time, it's what does that mean, little bit at a time? So he meant to say he should not do it, which means he do it in a very slow motion, and that's a problem. Why? My tama, what's the reason? So he explained Keivan de leitle heikera, because he doesn't is no conspicuous reminder that it is Shabbat. So what's the problem? It may happen atelemei akira v'anacha. So again, Rashi here explained it in the word klomar, and I said it, explain it in my book. I just give you the abbreviation. The zimnin the kai v'lavedater v'ratzi kaecha. If he runs, his brain is there and is very alert to what's going on. But if he is doing it in such a manner, so it's very hard to believe that there is a he come to perform act of lifting and placing by stopping to rest on his way home, and therefore it's a problem. The Rambam Hilchot Shabbat chapter 13, and there's also Lechem Mishna, have a lot to say about it, because there are those who say that it's only applied to a very heavyweight package. So usually people don't run when they carry it on their shoulder. So that's reminding that you should not stop. But again, not everyone is happy with that. The Ramban said that it's also applied to a package. The Meiri asked what happened if he cannot carry in that manner or that distance. But the best way is to look at Magen Avraham or Achaim Reish Samech Vav 266, that he and the Vilna Gaon explain what's involved. So the Gemara asks, Sof Sof Kimata Lebeitei. Eventually, when he reached his home, Efshar Delokaya Puta, it can be that he will not stop a little bit before he entered to his home. Veka Me'ayel, when he bring the package Mirshut Arabim Lirshut Hayachid, from the public domain to a private domain, he violating a biblical precept. And then when he starts again walking in order to bring to his house, he's basically fulfilled the idea of akira. He lifting up that pocket in a public domain, he bring it to his home, that is a private domain, and he put it there. So the Maharsha and the Ran have issue with all of that. How you allow it? Remember in the earlier chapters we said that all of that is forbidden. So he said, the Gemara in a simple way, he said, it's not a question. The zarik lakila chariyad. That what did he do? He's doing in a very unusual way. He's just throwing it down, and therefore he did not perform an action of a typical manner. So it's not a violation of Torah law. But the Mishnah Berurah said that even though he said it in Mishnah Berurah in 266, he says, but let's face it, even by the rabbinic law, you cannot do that, even if you make an atypical way. The only reason they allow it is because of the loss in money involved with this. So that's the reason they do it. But it's only by force of circumstance. Now we continue with the idea of mechamer, if someone followed his animal. Amar Rabbi bar Chama mechamer achar behemto b'Shabbat. He said that one who drives the laden animal on Shabbat, so if it's b'shogeg, if it's unwittingly chayav chatat, he needs to bring a sin offering. B'meizid chayav sgila. If it's intentional, it's chayav skila. It's the same as someone does a regular labor on Shabbat. Ma'itama. What's the reason that someone who followed the animal, the laden animal, he need to deserve skila? Amar Rabba, Amar Kra. Because the Torah said explicitly in the book of Shmot, Exodus chapter 20, Lo ta'aseh kol melacha ata uvincha uvitecha avdecha v'amtcha uvehemtecha. The Torah said clearly you should not do any work. You, and the Torah goes specifically, one of the list is your animal. So because they said ata, you, and behemtecha, your animal, so we learn in a hekesh one to another. We juxtapose one to another. Behem tod dum yadidei, the labor that you did with your animal, the same as you do something by yourself. Mahu, the same way as the regular type of work. You do it beshogeg and unwittingly. Chayav chatat, you need to bring a sin offering. Bemeizid chayav skila, if it was intentional, he deserves skila. Av behemto, the same apply to someone who bring a laden animal on Shabbat. So if he's doing some type of mechamer, name beshogeg chayav chatat, mezid chayav skila. We juxtapose and we said both. If it's unwittingly, it's a sin offering. If it's intentionally, it's a skila. So so why some Ramban ask? So how come this one is not one of the 39 type of work? Mechamer achar behemto. If someone laden animal on Shabbat is not one. So he said that it's not independent type of work, but the Torah wants to tell us that if someone use his animal to do work, it's considering as he does that work by himself. Amar Rava, shtei tshuvot badavar. Rava said that there are two possible answers which statement can be rejected. Chada, first reason, dichtiv, because it's written in regard to a sin offering. If someone unintentionally worship idols, so the Torah said in the book of Bamidbar, Numbers, chapter 15, Torah achat yelachem la'oseh b'shgaga b'nefesh ha'aseh b'yad rama. So they said clearly as follows: you shall have one law, one Torah, for him that does unwittingly, and for the proselyte who reside among them. But the soul that does with high hand, whether he be homeborn or a stranger, he blasphemed the Lord, and the soul shall be cut off from his among the people. That's a famous statement. So by using the term Torah achat, one Torah, uksha kol Torah kula, we juxtapose the entire Torah to idolatry. So from that juxtaposition we derive the whole idea. The same way as idolatry, one is liable to perform an action with his body, which is himself. The same way is if he does with the body, which means he is not liable of an action that made by his animal. Ve'od is another question we can ask. The GEMARA said in Sanhedrin 66, המחלל את השבת, one who desecrate the Shabbat, how בדבר שחייבים על שגיגתו חטאת ועזונו סגילה, something that if you do it unintentionally it's a sin offering, and if it's intentional it's סגילה, מכלל דאי כמידי, דאין חייבים על שגיגתו חטאת ועזונו סגילה. It means that there are some circumstances that you do not have if it's unwittingly a sin offering, and if it's intentionally a סגילה. ומה עניו? And he give me an example that's applied. Lav de mechamer. It's not applied to the prohibition of driving a laden animal. So driving laden animal and other labors, it's not punishable by stoning, even though they are prohibited by Torah law. So it means that now you see a contradiction between this Mishnah to the word that we mentioned earlier for Rami Bar Chama, that if someone laid an animal, if it's unintentional, he need to bring a sin offering, and what we said now. So the Gemara responded and said, "Lo, someone who does this type of laden animal on Shabbat, if it's unintentional, he needs to bring a sin offering, and if it was intentional, it has to be skila." And what we brought this Mishnah in Sanhedrin, that it's a desecration of Shabbat, that you do not deserve this type of either sin offering for unwittingly and the skila for intentional. It's applied to one thing. It's applied to what? Tchumin. Tchumin meaning the prohibition that apply to certain Shabbat limits, which means that where you're allowed to pass is like the Tchum Shabbat. V'aliba de Rabbi Akiva hold that the Torah prohibition of the Tchumin is a biblical. So therefore, if you go by that, the whole idea of you're not allowed to go on Shabbat more outside of the Tchum, outside of the domain, meaning outside of the 2,000 Amma, from the place that you are in Ben Hashmashot dwell. So most of the rabbis say that is rabbinic, but Rabbi Akiva hold that is biblical. That's what they said in Sota 27. So Rabbi Akiva agreed that if someone did it unintentionally, he need to bring a sin offering, because he doesn't. I'm sorry, he doesn't need to bring neither a sin offering, no karet, no skila. Why? Because he said that coming out of the Tchum Shabbat is not considering a labor. It's not considering a melacha. So it means that Rabbi Akiva is not in a position to disagree with the previous Mishnah that bringing the whole list of the melachot on Shabbat, that you need to, if you violate it, you need to bring either sin offering if it's unintentional or karet, etc. And then mention the limitation of the Tchumim. So it means that the Mishnah over there implied to what Rabbi Akiva said, the Mishnah in Sanhedrin, and imply indirectly to the prohibition of Tchumim. And they said, is another thing you can say, V'hav'ara aliba de Rabbi Yossi. And the whole idea of kindling a fire in Shabbat is according to the opinion of Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi hold that you don't need to have a sin offering or skila for this, because the Torah said in the book of Shmot, chapter 35, you shall not burn a candle, any type of fire, and all of you dwelling on the day of Shabbat. So you think, but we just said that you should not you should not do any work. So why do you need to say? So if you're kindling, it's considering part of the labor, it's derivative from that labor. So what we derive for that? So that's basically the difference, that it's implying indirectly that Rabbi Yossi hold that it is not punishable by stoning but by lashes like other prohibitions if someone did it. Rav Zvid Matnei Hacher, we just turned a few lines in page 154. Rav Zvid taught this as follows: Amar Rabbi Rami bar Chama hamechamer achar behema b'Shabbat. If one who drive a laden animal on Shabbat, so if it was b'shogeg, unintentional, eino chayav chatat. So if it was unintentional, he is not liable to bring a sin offering. So it means that Rabbi bar Chama learned from that juxtaposition to idolatry that the idea of sin offering apply only if he does with his own body. But this who lay the animal, he did it without his own body, so he doesn't need to bring a sin offering. B'mezid chayav skila. However, if he does that intentionally, he's liable by executed by skila, by stoning. Mativ Rava המחלל לשבת בדבר שחייבים על תשגעותו חייבים על תזונו skila. If someone desecrated Shabbat, but something that if it was unintentional, you need to bring a sin offering, but if it was intentional, it's skila. So what is applied? So they said, אין חייבים על שגיאתו אחת, אין חייבים אותו סגולה סקילה. If you tell me that if it was unwittingly, you do not need to bring a sin offering, you derive from that if it was intentional, you do not reach the execution of stoning, the skila. So now you see a contradiction between what Rami Bar Chama said earlier. So GEMARA rejected it and said, Mi katani ha en chayavin al shigato chadad en chayavim al zuna skila. We didn't say that that unwitting performance one is not liable to bring a sin offering. For its intentional performance one is not liable to be executed by stoning. So what we have to say is hachi ke'amar. This is what you have to say. That's what the Tana meant. Davar shechayvim al shigato chachratat. If something you deserve for doing unwittingly sin offering, chayavin al zdono skila. That if you did it intentional, so that's deserves skila. However, and something the opposite, that you do not have to bring a sin offering for unintentional, so not necessarily you need to, if it's intentional, it's not necessarily skila, only it's conditional, one by the other. V'yesh davar, and there are some situations she'en chayavin al shigegato chatat v'chayavin al zgolo skila. So there are situations that for its unwitting performance one is not liable to bring a sin offering, but nevertheless for its intentional performance one is liable to be executed by stoning. And mainihu, and give me an example. Mechamer, the one case of driving a laden animal. So even in the unintentional you don't need to bring a sin offering, yet if it was intentional, that's part of the category of skila. Mi she'echshich baderech. Rambam Hilchot Shabbat chapter 6, Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim 266. One who is traveling and Shabbat begins while he is still on the road may give his money to a non-Jew to carry it for him if there is a non-Jew traveling with him. If there is no other non-Jewish person with him, he may place his pouch on, in those days, on a donkey. But in other words, in that sense, it can go with that idea. Higia lachatzer harishona. One who is traveling on Shabbat Eve and arrives after nightfall at a location where he can securely leave his belonging, may take the vessels that may be moved on Shabbat from his donkey. Again, that's the Talmudic, but we can derive a practical halacha for that. With regard to the rest of the vessels, meaning the vessels that may not be moved on Shabbat, he may unite the ropes that attach his bags to the donkey and let the bags vessels fall on their own. But they said one may give a non-Jew an object that he is carrying on Shabbat if it's one's own property. However, it is prohibited to give a non-Jew someone else lost object that once found after the Shabbat began. That's a different story. We also discuss here a situation of one who was traveling on Shabbat began, and for example, in a donkey or a deaf mute or the imbecile or a minor were alongside with him, should place his pouch on a donkey rather than hand it to a deaf mute or others, or minor, etc., because it is preferable to place it on an animal rather than to give it to a person. One who is traveling with a deaf mute should give his pouch to the and also imbecile. So he should give it to an imbecile who is completely lacking in halachic intelligence. If we have a minor who will possess halachic intelligence and be obligated to observe mitzvot when he reaches the age of the maturity, right? Therefore, one is traveling with a imbecile, and a minor should give his pouch to an imbecile, even though the minor is not currently obligated to observe mitzvot. one is traveling with a deaf mute and a minor, may give the pouch to whatever he prefers, as the dilemma in GEMARA is not resolved, and both the Rif and the Rosh rules that one may act according to with either possibility. So you see here that it's a not so simple. We talk about Truma, but it's important to know that this is the Rambam Hilchot Truma chapter 4. He said there are 5 categories of people whose separation of Truma is not considered Truma. And they are a deaf mute, an imbecile, a minor, a non-Jew who separates Truma on behalf of a Jew, and a Jew who separates Truma from someone else's produce without the owner's consent. Now we speak about one who is traveling with money on Shabbat Eve and has neither non-Jew, nor a donkey, nor a deaf mute, nor an imbecile, nor a minor with him at nightfall, may carry it in the increments smaller than 4 cubits until he reaches his destination. When placing his pouch atop of animal on Shabbat, one may place it while the animal is walking and remove it when the animal stops. When the animal starts moving again, he places it again. He does so to avoid performing a full pledge of carrying, which is consists of lifting and placing. If one lifts an object on Shabbat and places it on another person while he was walking, and then take it from him before the person stopped, neither person is liable, even if they are walking from one domain to another. This is because there was a full pledge act of carrying, which will consist lifting and placing. Now, if one was carrying a package on his shoulder, when Shabbat begins, should run home with the package. This is permitted only if he runs walking with a package in his usual manner is prohibited, lest he forget that it is Shabbat and perform the prohibited labor of carrying by lifting and placing. When he reaches his home, he throws the package down in an unusual manner by dropping it behind him off his shoulder, because in that way he does not perform an act of placing something that's prohibited by Torah law. Hamchalel Shabbat, one who desecrates Shabbat unwittingly is liable to bring a sin offering. If he did so intentionally, he is punishable by karet, and if there are witnesses, and the forwarding is liable by the skila. And in general halacha, that's the last halacha of today. That's Rambam Hilchot Shabbat chapter 20. Avodah b'vehemto b'Shabbat. It is prohibited to have an animal carry out a burden on Shabbat, as it's stated in Shmot in Exodus 23, that you ox and you donkey may rest. One who has his animal carry out a burden on Shabbat does not receive any malkot, because it is prohibited, that stems from a positive commandment, and he is only liable to receive this malkot for violating a negative commandment. One who drives a laden animal on Shabbat is exempt because he does not perform a prohibited labor himself. However, it is still prohibited to do so. So you see, as we wrap it up, when it's come to this type of question, it's always good to ask a competent rabbi to know what's the final halacha, especially with this sensitive subject.
To